This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Tonight we are learning Le'ofuah Shlemat Ella Gidel Bat Tzila and for Le'ilu Nishmat to Leah Bat Sarah. Also, as a reminder, the person that always reminds me to mention about, to everyone's welcome, is not here for the past 2 weeks, and I haven't said it. This is how it shows you how incompetent I am without, people will be like, it's like every week I need to say it, but yet every week I don't. So, all women are welcome to join us every Thursday night at BJX at 1601 Quentin Road at Thursdays at 8 p.m., sometimes 7:30 for a brachos party. And, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys have a stash of wine or beer somewhere on the bottom over here. And, because there has been there was a few times that I came over here that there was some, going on. But it's not so bad. I have a class that people prepare a different way. They get very spiritual. I don't know how you say that. So it's kind of used to that type of thing. Well, they play the flute. Very, very practicing their breathing. Relaxation techniques. They do a lot of things. But okay. So tonight is you guys are lucky that you came tonight. I'm lucky that I came tonight. But you guys are also lucky that you came tonight. You guys are also lucky that I came tonight. Wow, so everyone's lucky. All right, and good night. All right, thanks for coming. There is such an amazing lesson, or lessons, that we're going to learn tonight, B'ezrat Hashem, on Rachel Imenu. And hopefully we'll be able to branch it off into other lessons as well. What shook me so hard is that the things that I'm about to say is not something new that I've learned. I've learned this midrashim for years. I've known this for years. But this year, when I was reviewing it and I was learning it, it hit me at a different angle and answered a question that's such a difficult question to answer. And it made it so clear that, it literally whenever I'm learning this, I'm it's really mind blowing. So all I'm trying to say is get ready to get your mind blown. All right. So now, we have to try to understand this concept of Rachel Imenu. Rachel Imenu, we know, was one of the matriarchs, our foremothers, if you can call them like that. The very interesting part about it is that, let's say, even her death is commemorated more than any of the other imalot. We know that her yurtzeit, her death is on 11th of Cheshvan. We also know that she's also buried in a place where the other matriarchs are not buried. The other imalot are buried in the Ma'arat HaMachpelah. She is buried on the road, to Bethlehem. So now, we have to try to understand, why was the purpose of that? Why did God do that? Is it beneficial? There's crazy amounts of lessons to be learned over here. So now let's go back and let's give a brief introduction about what the story was when Rachel Imenu, came into the picture. So we know that Yaakov Avinu went to look for a wife. He went to look for a wife. This is not something that you should try nowadays, but back then it was pretty popular. You find your wife near a well. Okay, if you want to try it nowadays, then that's the reason. You have to find the well. If you're going near a well to find your wife, then please move to a non-third world country, and enjoy us in our technologically advanced, society. But Yaakov Avinu went to Haran. He went to Haran. Haran was where his ancestors, where his forefathers, where his father's family lived, and he went to find a wife. And we see this in Genesis in chapter 29. Here is where Rachel is introduced into the picture. She was tending her father's sheep, which is another whole question. Why was a woman tending a sheep? Why wasn't Laila over there? But in any case, the story starts that she's tending her father's sheep. And it says over there that Rachel was very, very beautiful. She was very beautiful. And in contrast, the same pasuk says that Leah, it says something very interesting. Her eyes were very weak, were very tender. Now, if you know how to read people, and you don't have to be oh yeah, you just lost $50, you're emotionally disturbed, and you're depressed, which pretty much, is 1 in 5 people in America. But, in any case, you go over there, when you're looking at a person, you can see a lot about the person's eyes. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. Literally, it's eyes. I don't know if people realize this, but the neshama is right behind the eyes. The eyes is literally the window of the soul. It says, Leah's eyes were very tender or very weak. What does it mean that they were weak? What were they weak for? So we all know that the very obvious, interpretation, the explanation is that she was constantly crying. Why was she crying? Because she knew that she had a sister and Yaakov had a brother. There were 2 boys and 2 girls. And they knew that these 2 boys were going to marry these 2 girls. The older one, which was Leah, was going to marry the older boy, which was Esav. The younger one, Rachel, was going to marry the younger one, which is Yaakov. Now Leah knew that Esav was not the best kid on the block. He had a reputation that preceded it. And she didn't want to marry him. And she kept on crying and crying and crying. And this is why her eyes were weak. The eyes were tender because she cried nonstop, begging and praying to God, please God, don't let me marry Esav. So the Yaakov gets over there and he sees Rachel. Rachel is very beautiful, and Leah, we said that the eyes are very weak. And he goes over to Lavan and he says, listen to Lavan. He says, I want to marry your younger daughter, Rachel. And Lavan says, yeah, not a problem. The swindler of a person that he is. He says, you want to marry her? Work for me for 7 years. And then, and then you can marry her. By the way, this is woman, but if a man goes to a woman and say, hey, I want to hold, your wife, in wedding, and the wife, the husband, and the father-in-law is like, yeah, no problem, just work for me for 7 years. Nowadays and age, might be a good idea to just ask, is this normal? Like, should this be done? But back then, this was a normal thing. So Yaakov says, not a problem. I'll work for her for 7 years. He works for her for 7 years. Now, everybody knew that Lavan was a slippery slope type of guy. He was one of those sleazy guys, with the gilled back here, had his collars outside, like over here, always chewing something in his mouth, had a ring on one finger, a toothpick in the other one. Hey, listen, buddy, I don't know why I described Italian mafia. But in any case, he goes, and everybody knew that he was a sleazy guy. So Yaakov and Rachel figured there's something fishy going on over here. Something fishy might happen. Let's make a secret code over here. So there's no tricks that's going around. So Yaakov and Rachel, they go and they make a secret sign to make sure that Lavan doesn't play any games. 7 years pass by, it comes for the wedding night. The wedding night comes, and surprise, surprise, Lavan the trickster decides to pull a trick, and he swaps. Instead of Rachel, he puts Leah under the canopy, under the wedding. Now, Rachel felt bad, and that her sister is going to get embarrassed because it's going to find out over here that she wasn't really that one. She felt bad. She gave her the secret code, so this way she's not going to get embarrassed, and Yaakov is going to marry Leah. Now, in the morning, Yaakov wakes up and he says, hey, what's going on over here? He goes to Lavan and says, hey, this is not what I signed up for. You gave me Leah. I worked for Rachel. So what did Lavan answer? He says, no, it doesn't work like that way over here. It works over here. First you marry off the older girl, and then you marry off the younger girl. So that's how we do it over here. So Yaakov goes and says, Lavan goes to Yaakov and says, hey, listen. He says, all is not lost. Work for me another 7 years, and then I'll give you Rachel. Right, fool me once, shame on, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me 3 times, shame on we. We don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Okay, I said it wrong, all of them, on purpose. Okay, so, so Yaakov says, fine, I'll work for you another 7 years. So he says, he didn't have to work, he finished the Sheva Bachot over there, went a week, then he married Rachel, and then he worked for Lavan another 7 years. Now, Rachel's life was not easy from the beginning. Her sister married her husband, or apparently was supposed to be her husband. And not only that, she had a hard time with children. Finally, that she did have a child, she had Yosef. About 7-8 years later, she had another child, Binyamin. And then when they entered Eretz Yisrael, Binyamin, when she gave birth to Binyamin, she passed away during childbirth. And not only that is she was buried in the path. She wasn't buried in Mount Machpelah. She was buried on the path to, in the beginning of Eretz Yisrael. So now the question that we have to ask is over here is Rachel gave up a lot for Leah. She gave up her husband. She gave her the secret code. She made sure that she's not going to get embarrassed. So finally she ends up marrying Yaakov. But after all that, what's her reward? That she not only did she have to share her husband with her sister and her maidservants, but not only that, she also didn't get to even, be with him in the next world. Obviously not in the next world, but she wasn't buried next to him. Leah was buried next to him. Rachel was not buried next to him. This is her reward. She sacrificed so much, and this is what she got. You ever had that question? What's going on over here? This is her reward. So I want to share with you a true story that happened in World War II in Romania. There was a person by the name of Shalom Ozer Braun, and he used to work in antiques and Judaica, business. And he had 10 children, And he was very, very, very strict when it comes to religion. Like, you don't mess around with him when it comes to religion. Especially when it comes to chinuch, the education of his children. When it comes to religion, the best schools, only the best. There's no outside influence. Everything was very strict to code. And the time came, the Nazis entered Romania, and lo and behold, they set up shop right next door to his house. He had a very nice big house. Right next to his house, they set up shop. He realized this is not going to fly. He packed up, and he moved to the far end of town to a little shack. And, the word was going out, what was going on with the Nazis and what Germany was doing. And they realized that people need to leave. And this came wind to this person, Shalom Oizer Braun, his sister-in-law, started understanding what the situation was, that she calls her brother, and his name was Shmuel. He was brothers with this person that we're talking about, the main character, if we may. So she calls her husband, and she says, listen, he says, she was pregnant at the time, and they had one child. And he says, listen, you got to get out of Romania. You got to get out of here. No one's going to survive. Take our son. Her son's name was David. Take our son and go to Eretz Yisrael. Just get out, whatever you can. She wasn't able to leave because she was pregnant, but he says, you have got to leave. So she convinced him that he went, and he decided that he's going to try to take as much family members as he possibly can. He was able to convince another brother of his by the name of Noach that was also willing to go and purchase a ticket. And they went and they purchased 3 tickets. One for the father, one for the son, and one for the brother. Now, meanwhile, this brother who purchased a ticket goes over to the brother with the 10 kids and says, listen, he says, it's not going good over here. Come with us. You're able to leave. Let us leave right now. So the guy was a strict. He says, where are you going to go? You're going to go to America? America's terrible education for the children. He says, what's going to be with them? They're going to end up be like, non-religious? God forbid? Absolutely not. He says, where else are you going to take them? To Israel? Israel wasn't that better. Enlightenment also reached over there. He says, nothing doing. We're staying right here. And he tried to convince him. He wasn't able to. The sister-in-law heard that this brother was not interested. She says, let me talk to him. She goes over and she talks to him. She says, listen, I understand that you don't want to because of chinuch. She says, at least be like Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu split up his camp. This way, at least part of it will survive. At least if you go send, some of your children over here, some of your children here, at least you have something to survive. She says, at least send 2 of your children with my husband. Let them at least survive. So he was thinking about her logic made sense. And she kept on saying, she said, listen, don't worry about it. My husband's going to take care of the chinuch. He's going to make sure that they have the top of the level, education that they need. So he decided, fine. After long, discussion, he says, fine, I'll send my 2 oldest. He had 2 twins. He had an older boy by the name of Eliyahu and a girl by the name of Chaya. He says, they're going to be able to go with you. They went and they purchased tickets for them as well. The week before they were to depart on the ship, the mother of the 10 children decided that she didn't want her 2 oldest children to go into Israel looking like refugees, which they were. Says, let me go and get dressed to buy them expensive clothes, let them dress them nice so they look when they come into Eretz Yisrael, when they come into this as a refugee, they'll look like royalty and hopefully they'll be treated like royalty. So she goes and she purchases them a new suit, a new set of clothing, new shoes. And they decided they're going to wear it the first Shabbat before they go. They're going to wear it as, the first time to wear things on Shabbat, which is always a good idea. Just FYI, if you buy something new, always wear it for the first time on Shabbat. Always a good thing. So they go and they're wearing the new clothes on Shabbat, and the oldest son, Eliyahu, is walking back from shul on Shabbat day. And all of a sudden, there's bombing that's happening in their village, in their town. There's shells that's flying everywhere. Everybody's scrambling, running for coverage. And he's so nervous over there. He's sitting over there, and he's running for coverage. Meanwhile, he has to run in the mud and the dirt, and he's thinking, I have brand new shoes. He says, why am I going to ruin my shoes? He takes off his shoes, and he's running barefoot, dodging from place to place until finally he makes it home. His mother sees him walking home. She hugs him. She kisses him. She starts crying. She says, look at this miracle. Look at this unbelievable miracle. We never had such a bombing over here. Baruch Hashem that you made it. The father was standing in the corner over there, very stern face, very strict. And she goes over to him. She says, you see this miracle? He says, I didn't see any miracle. I saw a complete and utter desecration of Shabbat. He says, my son, in front of my own eyes, he took off his shoes and he was carrying on Shabbat? He says, you know how to carry on Shabbat? He says, if this is my son, is going to do this under my roof, he says, what is he going to do in America? What is he going to do in Israel? He says, absolutely not. He's not leaving anywhere. My son and my daughter are staying right here with me. And the sister-in-law went over to them and says, listen, it's bombing, this, you can't, you try to talk some sense, he's nothing doing. He was extremely strict. Some people may call it fanatic. He's like this, he is staying right here, and my daughter's staying right here, nothing doing. So, the date came that, they were supposed to leave on the ship. It was December 11, 1941. The brother, his son, and the other brother, so Noach, David, and Shmuel all departed the ship called Struma. They departed the ship in the port of Romania, and they bid their family farewell. And they realized that this is the last time that they're going to see their family. They realized it's not going to be good, and they kept on begging, please, you have tickets for this time, send them. The guy says, nothing doing. So they get on the ship, and the boat is traveling. It got stuck in the Black Sea. There was the boat was had some malfunction in its weak and old engine, and it got stuck in the Black Sea. They were near Istanbul. They were near Turkey. So Turkey sent out a tugboat, took the boat, and they brought it to shore. They went and they stood over there. There's about 700 people on this boat. They went over there and they were working on fixing on the ship. Meanwhile, they didn't know where to send these were refugees. And Turkey said, listen, we're not accepting these 700 refugees. And they said, if anybody's willing to accept the refugees, that's fine. Until then, they were under quarantine and they had to stay in this small, cramped place until some sort of country offered to accept them. This was, and for about 10 weeks they stayed like this. And the Jewish agencies even tried to go. At that point in time, Israel was owned by England. So they tried the British government to say, listen, allow them to come into Israel, give them the visas, give them the right passage that they should be able to go into Israel, and we'll take them. And the British mandate said, no, that's not happening. And they went from place to place. No one wanted to accept them. Finally came the point in time that they said, listen, if no one's going to accept you, says we're sending you back to Romania. The Jews on board, when they heard that, they went to destroy the engine. They said, there's no way we're going back to the death camps. We just escaped there. We're not going back anywhere but there. And they broke the engine. And the Turkish government was thinking what they were going to do. They said, listen, you think you're going to hurt us? They took a tugboat, they put it in international waters, and they just left the boat drifting over there. He says, whatever happens, happens. This happened on February 23rd, 1942. On February 24, one day later, after they were put in the middle of the ocean, on February 24th, 1942, the Struma was hit by a Russian submarine, by a torpedo. And all 700 people on that, there was 103 children, 272 women, and 393 men, all perished among them, including, the two brothers and the son that was on that boat. There was one survivor by the name of David Stolar who went and told over what happened. Somehow, against all odds, this, Shalom Ozebron and his wife and 10 children survived the war. They survived the war in Romania, and in 1950 they decided they're going to Eretz Israel. They went to Eretz Israel, and they went to visit the Sar Vizhnitz Rebbe. And they asked him, and he said, one of the most important things, as always, was the education for his children. He says, where is the best place that I could live, that my children's education will be the best? And he says, go to Kfar Ata. It's a place in Israel. And he went, and they moved to Kfar Ata. The first of the 10 children to get married was the oldest twin, which was the girl by the name of Chaya. She got married. Who did she get engaged to? The son of this rabbi. The son of the rabbi of the Sar Vizhnitz Rebbe. And who did this son end up becoming later the rabbi of the Sar Vizhnitz? His name was Rabbi Eliezer Hager, and they went on to become the leading people of that Hasidic group. When we look, we see very nice ending. You see this beautiful, amazing. They listened to God. You see what happened over here? You have to understand the concept of the story. You think in the middle of the story, but look at this. This guy's crazy. This guy's a fanatic. What is he doing? Go save your children. He says, no, I am going to do something for God. And guess what? When you do something for God, you don't get hurt. You don't lose out if you listen to God. He says, okay, fine. And look at this. Unbelievable. All 10 children survived. And you know what a rarity that is in the Holocaust? All 10 children, the entire family survived to the end. That's very nice and very dandy. That's what we would expect to see when you sacrifice so much for God. Let's look at the story of Rachel. Rachel sacrificed everything. She sacrificed her husband. She sacrificed, she said she didn't even want her sister to get embarrassed. What did she gain? She had 2 out of the 12 tribes. And then she went and she didn't even get to be buried next to her husband. She didn't even get to be married next to her husband. This is her reward? Where is it? I thought you don't. This is the strongest question that I get, and I get it often. It's a very difficult question to answer. I don't understand. He says, you always say, and every rabbi always says, if you do something for God, you don't get hurt. You don't get hurt. Not hurt. You don't get hurt. Look at Rachel. Could you have a better question than Rachel? Rachel says, I gave everything. I gave everything up. And this is what I get. This is my reward. She could have asked that. There are many people that say, listen, I go and I pray and I pray and I pray, and the person passed away. And they go, I pray, and I don't have a shidduch. And let's say there was, sometimes, you get engaged, and it doesn't work out. And, so the girl or the guy, whoever breaks off the engagement, thinks, you know what, this guy's crazy, psychopath. And guess what? He's not. He was a great guy. He ended up becoming a multimillionaire. Says, God, what happened? He says, I prayed, and this is what you give me. This is the reward. People pray, and there's no panasah. People pray, and the person dies. People pray, and there's no shidduch. What's going on over here? Where is the point of it all? This is such a powerful question, and this is such a difficult question to answer. And can it be a bigger question that Rachel could ask in God? Rachel said, I gave away everything. I didn't even want her to be embarrassed. She didn't have to do that. I didn't even want her to be embarrassed. And this is my reward. So let's look a little bit deeper onto the story. There's a Rashi in Genesis, chapter 48, verse 8, that when Yosef and Yaakov are talking, Yaakov goes and tells Yosef, he says, listen, I want to tell you why your mother was buried in the road and she wasn't buried, in the Ma'at Machpelah like everybody else is going to be. And he says, this is because God told me to do this. This is Rashi. He says, God told me to do this. Why? Because there's going to come a time when the Jewish people are going to be exiled from their land. And they're going to pass by the tomb of Rachel. They're going to pass by the gravesite of Rachel. And they're going to go and they're going to pray over there. And in her merit, they're going to go and they're going to be saved. And they're going to be able to return back into the Holy Land. Now that's very nice and dandy, but let's take this a whole lot deeper. Let's look at this. A midrash in Echa. In introduction to Echa, there's a midrash that goes like this, and says that God sends Yirmiyahu to the patriarchs. He says, send them to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe. And says, listen, go to them, let them wake up. The Jewish people are going to go through bad things. Let them go mourn for the Jewish people. Let them pray for the Jewish people. So he goes to Avraham. And he goes to Abraham gets up there and he starts begging to God and he says, God, please. He says, I was willing to sacrifice my son. Do you know what that means? Do you know what the test that Abraham had? Abraham, he went and he preached to everybody else, do not sacrifice your child. Because back then, human sacrifice was a huge thing. And Abraham would say, this is not what God wants. God does not want you to sacrifice your children to God. And then God tells him, hey, your test is sacrifice your child to God. You know what a test that is? And Abraham said to God, I didn't ask any questions. I went and I sacrificed my son that you promised me that I'm going to have generations and generations to come. I went and I sacrificed him. In that merit, please save the children of Israel. Save them from exile. God did not answer. Comes Yitzchak, and Yitzchak says, God, he says, I was on the altar. I was willing to sacrifice myself for you. I got over there and I was doing it willingly and happily. In this merit, please save the children of Israel from exile. God did not even respond. Comes Yaakov Avinu. He goes and he says, God, I was willing to sacrifice myself when I encountered Esav. And Esav wanted to destroy me. I was willing to sacrifice myself that my children shouldn't get hurt. Now that my children are going and they're going to be led to the slaughterhouse, he says, in this merit, please, I sacrificed myself. I was willing to give myself up for them. Please don't let them die. God did not answer. Moshe Rabbeinu comes. Going to be someone bigger. Moshe Rabbeinu, he tells God, I'm the loyal shepherd. He says, I did everything. I went and not only that, you didn't let me go into Eretz Yisrael. You didn't let me see my fruits of my labor, everything that I tried so hard. I wasn't able to go into Eretz Yisrael. He says, now that the Jews got into Eretz Yisrael, you're going to send them out and you're going to be part of the exile, and you want me to mourn with that? You didn't even give me part in this merit. Please, God, please go and please save the Jewish people. God did not respond. And I want to share with you, and I'm going to say this part in Hebrew because this is so important. The Midrash goes on. It says, B'ota sha'a kafza Rachel. And that time, Rachel jumped. Meaning, she wasn't summoned to the party. She jumped on herself. She came out on herself. And she goes and she says, listen, he says, Yaakov worked for me for 7 years. And when the 7 years were up, they wanted to make a switch for my sister. And she says it was very hard. It says, V'huksha alai hadava ad me'od. It was very difficult. You think, Rachel Imenu, of course, everything's easy for Rachel Imenu, of course. She'll do anything. She says, no. This is what she says. The Midrash brings down over there. V'huksha alai hadava ad me'od. It was very, very difficult for me to give up my husband. You know how difficult it was? And not only that, I had an intent to double-cross my father. I gave the secret code to Yaakov. I knew that. I figured something like this was going to happen. I didn't want it to happen. And it was very, very difficult. And then what? But then I had mercy on my sister. I had mercy on her. He says, look what she's going to be, so much embarrassment. And then I heard a crazy chidush. I heard from Zechariah Wallerstein. Listen to this crazy chidush. Fast forward a little bit forward. Reuven, Leah's child, goes and finds Dudaim. Dudaim, a question what you say. Franklin says, there's I forgot the other, interpretation. There's different ideas of what it was. Well, it was a certain plant that sort of helps you conceive. think of it like a medicinal type of plant. So at that point in time, Leah had Yehuda, but she didn't have any more children. So Reuven said, listen, I found this plant, let me give it to my mother. Maybe my mother will be able to go and conceive again. Rachel saw that he has this plant. And she said, at this point, she didn't have any children yet. So she goes and she says to Leah, says, please, can you give me your dudaim? Can you give me today? Maybe I'll be able to get pregnant. You know what Leah answered her? Leah answered her, he says, not only you stole my husband, you want to steal my plants? And you know what Rachel answered? Rachel answered, okay, listen, the four mothers, there's the four Abba Ima'ot, they had their own tent, and Yaakov had a different night with each of the Ima'ot. At that time, it was Rachel's turn. Rachel said, listen, let's make a trade. He says, it's my turn tonight. You could take Yaakov, give me the dudaim, and they made the switch. But now the question is, why did Rachel do that? Leah said, not only you stole my husband, now you also are going to steal my dudaim. She could have been, listen, sister. Literally. Listen. He says, I stole your husband? He was my husband. I gave him to you. I gave him your coat. I gave him the goat. Are you kidding me? You stole it from me. But she didn't say that. You understand? Leah, I'm telling you something, I don't know if you ever heard this before. Leah never knew that Rachel was supposed to marry Yaakov. She always thought that it was meant for her. Now the question is why? How? We all said in the beginning that we knew that Leah was supposed to marry Esav. Yaakov was supposed to marry Rachel. What did all of a sudden Leah get in her mind that she was supposed to marry Yaakov? How did she not even see this? And the answer is Leah witnessed the entire event when it transpired in the beginning. What happened was Yaakov comes to Lavan. Lavan sees Yaakov. He realized his father, when he came to find his wife, he came with 10 camels full of money. And Lavan goes and he sees Yaakov and he's like, where's your camels? He's like, you got a driver, picking him up in the back? He's like, no, I don't have any camels. He's like, oh no, you don't have any camels? He gives a big hug, and he pats him down. He says, maybe he's got some money on him. Maybe he's got the bills, strapped onto him like the drug smuggler. Hey, what's going on over here? Maybe he has over here. Nothing. He goes and he searches even in his mouth. Maybe he's hiding diamonds in his mouth. And Yaakov says, hey, listen, buddy. He says, I don't got any money. He says, Eliphaz took everything from me. So he says, what's going on? Why is he taking it from you? He says, Esav was trying to kill me. And Leah was watching this entire thing. He says, why is Esav, your brother, trying to kill you? He says, because I took his bechorah. I bought his bechorah from him. Leah heard. He says, wait a minute. You bought his bechorah? That means that now you're the firstborn. If you're the firstborn, that means I'm supposed to marry you. Yes, my prayers have been answered. She's like, so in her eyes, she was supposed to marry Yaakov. Rachel is the intruder that came in afterwards and be like, hey, can I also come in on this part? What's going on over here? All of a sudden Rachel is joining, the biggest tzaddik in the generation. It was supposed to be just her. So in her mind, and Rachel could have set the facts straight, but she didn't. She kept her mouth shut. She didn't say anything. So she goes over to, going back to our Midrash. Avraham Avinu came in front of God, nothing doing. Yitzchak came in front of God, nothing doing. Yaakov, Moshe, nothing doing. Rachel comes in and says, God, look what I gave up. He says, not only I gave it up, she never even knew about it. He says, in this merit, please save the Jewish people. You know what God answered? God answered, says the Midrash, Bishvilech Rachel, for you, Ani machzirat Yisrael mekoman. For you, I'm going to get up. He didn't answer any of the other ones. He says, for you, I'm getting up, and I'm going to return the Jewish people to their place. You realize, out of all the mothers, Mama Rachel. How many songs do we have of Mama Rachel? Cry for us again. You have all the popular songs, about Mama Rachel. What about Mama Leah? Mama Bilhah, Mama Zilpah? There's all, where's the rest of why is it Mama Rachel is everything? Because she's the mother that goes and prays for us. She has such a power of prayer that no one else has. You have hundreds of thousands of people visit her grave yearly. You don't understand what goes on. There is a whole army base going on. If you guys ever see over there, there's huge things. You could go over there. There's bulletproof buses. Why is, out of all the graves, everyone's going to Mama Rachel? Why don't we have that same type of thing to so many other graves we could mention over there? Why only Rachel? Because there's a power in Rachel. There's something going on over here. It says a pasuk in Yirmiyah, chapter 31, verse 14. It says, Kol berama nishma. A voice is heard on high. A high, like talking about like really, really high. What is it? Rachel mevaka al banea. Rachel is crying on her children. She's crying and she's crying. And you know what God answers her? God answers her and He says, restrain your voice. Your voice. Restrain your tears. I want to read it for you, this pasuk over here. It says over here, Mini kolech mi bechi. Refrain yourself from crying. Ve'inayach midima ki yesh sachar lepulasech. There is reward for you. He says refrain. He says stop crying. Let me share with you something from Rabbi Tzadok of Lublin. Rabbi Tzadok of Lublin goes and says like this, and says, let's say Rachel did not give the secret code to Leah. Let's say she didn't give it to him. Would she would have been at fault? So listen, says, somebody was going to get embarrassed. Maybe she was required by halacha to go and prevent her sister from getting embarrassed. Says Rabbi Tzadok of Lublin, no. She did not have to go and give the secret code. You know whose fault would have been if her sister would have been embarrassed? Lavan, the father. It wasn't her fault. She went above and beyond what she needed to, and she went and she wanted to give the code. Not only that, and this is what she goes to God. She says, God, just like I went, and I had compassion on my sister, please have compassion on the Jewish nation. But says Nachmanides, said the Ramban, something so unbelievable that I couldn't even believe this. It's something so crazy. You don't even know what Rachel sacrificed. We know the halacha is that a man is not allowed to marry two sisters. Yaakov married two sisters. Rachel married two sisters. How is he going to be able to do that? The answer is that the forefathers, they kept the entire Torah. Where? Only in Eretz Yisrael. That's where they kept the entire Torah. Outside there, they kept the Shabbat mitzvahs ben Enoch that they were required to. But in Eretz Yisrael, they kept the entire Torah. That is why when Yaakov went into Eretz Yisrael, that's when Rachel died. Now, says the Ramban, says Nachmanides, and he says that Rachel was a Neviah. She was a prophet. She knew what was going to happen. She realized when she agreed to allow her sister to go and take and marry her husband first, meaning that she was the first wife, she knew she's not going to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael with Yaakov. And not only that, she knew through Nevuah that she wasn't going to go and going to be buried next to Yaakov. You know what she gave up? She didn't give up just having, another, shared, wife with her husband. She gave up both over here and her burial space forever until the resurrection of the dead. She was not going to be buried up next to Yaakov. She gave up both the spiritual and the physical. You know what that is? It says in the physical, give up fine. But she gave up so much. She says, do you understand the sacrifice that Rachel Imenu gave? She gave up everything. Why? To not embarrass her sister. I was mind blown by this. Can you even begin to understand this? This is why it says in Yirmiyahu chapter 35 verse 15. It says in Jeremiah, Yesh sacha leputatech. God didn't listen to anybody else. For you, Rachel, for you, Mama Rachel, I am going to listen. We said all this is all based on the fact that Rachel was not jealous. She wasn't jealous. She says, I'm not jealous of my sister. Please, God, don't be jealous of the Jewish people. They were serving idols. They were, serving other gods. Don't be jealous. Obvious question. If you read the Torah, it says there straight out in Genesis chapter 30 verse 1, V'tikana Rachel. Rachel was jealous of her sister. It says there straight out she's jealous. What's going on? You look at Rashi over there. It says, why was Rachel jealous on her sister? What type of jealousy are we referring to over here? It says over there, Kina b'ma'asim atovim. She was jealous on her good deeds. He says, Amra ulai, maybe perhaps, shetzadka mimeni, that the Leah is more righteous than me, and that's why lo zachiti lebanim. She was righteous than me. That's why she has children, and I am not righteous enough, and that's why I didn't have any children. She was jealous on her spiritual growth of her sister. What's the halakha? You allowed to be jealous in somebody? You're not. But what about being jealous for somebody on the spiritual growth? That you're allowed to. And now that it's a good thing. It's called as kinat sofrim. You're allowed to be jealous of someone's spiritual growth, because that would make you want to grow also. You might make her want to grow as well. Now, what was she jealous about? Listen to this fascinating idea. Leah named her first son Reuven, her second son Shimon, her third son Levi, her fourth son she named Yehuda. This time I'm going to thank God. Why did she say thank you to God? Why was she by the fourth son? Because she made a very, very simple calculation. There are 4 wives. There's supposed to be 12 tribes. You take 12, you divide it by 4. Each mother, you think, would have 3 children. She had 4 children. She says, God, you're giving me more than everybody else. Now I'm going to thank you. And that's why she named her son Yehuda. By the way, just FYI, you know what? We're referred to as Yehudim. Why are we referred to as Yehudim, as Jews? Why are we not referred to as Reuvenim, Shimonim, Yisacharim? Why are we referred to as Yehudim? Because it is incumbent and it is important on a Jewish person to have a karat tov. You have to be grateful. If you're not a grateful person, look into you. There's something wrong with you. Spiritually, there's something going on over there. You have to, as a Jew, you need to be grateful. That Yehuda, we come from Yehudim. So now, says Rachel sees this. Rachel sees that, look at the level that my sister was able to reach. She was so grateful. She had such a karat to talk to God. She named her son Yehuda out of the gratitude. He says, how jealous am I? I wish I could have that karat to talk. I wish I could feel that grateful, that thankful, that close to God. That's what she was jealous for. Now, why did she want all the children? Was she bored? There was nothing for her to do. That's why she wanted the children. She wanted to be the Shvatim. She wanted to be the mother of the tribes, of the future tribes of Israel. She got answered. She's known as Rachel, Mama Rachel. She's the one, Rachel mevakeh al banea. She's the one that cries on their children. You know what? She's the one who has the power to go and save not just Yosef and Benjamin's tribes. She has the power to save the entire Jewish nation. There's a story that I read in Rabbi Binyamin Przansky's book. He reads something. He says a story about Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir Yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva would go every Rosh Chodesh to go and pray in the kever, in the graveside of Rachel Imenu. And he would go there and he would sit there and he would cry. People came to him for problems and he would cry. He says, there's only so much when someone hears all the problems of the Jewish people that it gets to them. It gets them, and eventually you just break down, you cry to God, God, please help the Jewish people! Every Rosh Chodesh, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz hears the problems of all the Jewish people. From depression to this one, to Parnasah, to Shalom Bayit, to the children, to no children. The problems that he had, he went and he broke down every Rosh Chodesh B'Rachel Imenu. And he had a very interesting custom. After he finished praying, he would back up, and then he would say, Vain Mama Rachel, vain. Cry, Mama Rachel, cry. And then he would depart. So the student that would be driving there, finally built up the courage and asked him, he says, Rabbi, I have a question. It says over there in the Pasuk, it says that God told Rachel Imenu, it says, Ma'ani kolech mi bechi. Don't cry anymore, Rachel. He says, there's going to be reward for your thing. He says, don't cry anymore. God tells Rachel, don't cry. Says the student to the rabbi, he says, how could you tell Rachel Imenu to cry if God himself tells Rachel Imenu not to cry? You know what the rabbi answered him? The rabbi answered him, he says, for a father to tell his daughter to stop crying, that he could do. But a son could always tell his mother to cry. And he says, yeah, mommy, cry. Cry for the entire Jewish nation. Who has the power to do this? Rachel Imenu has the power to do this. And only Rachel Imenu, because of all that she went and she sacrificed. We think she lost out. She didn't get to go next to Yaakov. She didn't get to go. Look, she didn't lose out. She had the power. She is the mother of all the Jewish nation. She's the one that you go and you cry, and she's the one that has the power to answer your request. There's a story that is told, another true story. There was a person in Israel who had 13 kids, lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. He learned in college. He made a very, very meager salary. His wife was a ganenet. She went and she took care of a kindergarten, group kids. And together with the salary, they were able to cover their rent for two bedrooms with 13 kids. Try to picture that. 2-bedroom apartment with 13 kids. They had enough money for rent, vegetables, and utility during the week, and some bread, and on Shabbat, chicken. That's all they covered. When the 5th child got married, the father, which he knew already, he had to go and he had to raise money to pay for the wedding. Weddings are not cheap. Not even talking about Gorski weddings. I'm not even going to go there. This is regular weddings for regular people are expensive. I'm not talking ones when you have to take a mortgage, from the Federal Reserve, to do that. So he goes and no one likes to go and collect money. Nobody. And he goes and he takes a flight to JFK. He realizes he has to go and he collect. He lands at JFK. He hitches a ride to Bar Park. He goes to a place called Shomel Shabbat. Shomel Shabbat is or better yet, the Shem Shabbos is a true way to say it. Is a place in Bar Park on 13th Avenue and 53rd Street. It's a meager building that has, if you'd be able to see the merits of certain buildings, that would be higher than the Freedom Tower. But it looks like a very simple beat. This building has minyanim around the clock, non-stop. There is like a hole in the wall over there. There's a minyan over there. There's like, you go over there, and not only that, they have also food for people that are coming. So he goes over there, he prays mincha, he eats a little bit snack with the food that they provide, and he goes around and he starts collecting in the shul over there. And he gets a few dollars, he gets, he even got a few, quarters, even a few dimes. And he's sitting over there, he's counting his change afterwards, and he's like, are you kidding me? He's like, this is what I have to do. So one of the people saw him over there and says, listen, he says, if you want the big bucks, he says, you're not going to get it over here. You got to go to people's houses. You got to go to people's businesses. So he says, yeah, I know, I've been here before. So fine, he goes and he finds somebody, the kind heart that gives him a little room in the basement. He sleeps over there in the basement. The next morning he wakes up, he goes to shul, learns a little bit after davening, and then he begins his route. He decides he's going to take a bus to Williamsburg, and he gets off at Bedford Gardens Housing Project. It's a place that the people do not have a lot of money, but they have big hearts. And just FYI, people that have big money don't always give the big checks. It's the people with the big hearts that give the big checks. So he goes. He's done this this route before, and he starts by the first building, starts knocking on the doors, and he gives a whole spiel. By the way, if anybody ever comes to you and says you this, you have to understand this is his 1,000th time that he's doing it today. Hey, he's collecting for his family, and his family has there's a daughter is getting married. It's the 5th child. Yada yada yada. Even if you can't give them anything, at least give them a kind word. So he goes and he starts knocking from door to door. Some people answer, some people don't. Some people, they say, come back later, my husband's not home. Some people open the door, make him wait out there for 5 minutes. Finally, after the 5 minutes, they give him 4 quarters or $1, which is the same thing if you know math. Right? He goes and they give him a few change, and this is how he makes his money. Every so often, you find a righteous person that actually treats him like a human being and says, hey, listen, would you like to come in? Maybe I could give you something to drink, something to eat. And he accepts it and he moves on. After a rigorous, 7 hours of doing this, he opens up and he starts counting what he made that day. He made $273. He says, if I have to do it, it's going to take me months to make the money to be able to, pay off my, the wedding. And he's sitting over there, he made some appointments. He had some wealthy people that he came previous years. So he made some appointments to, go see them later at night. And he's thinking, should I go? And he says, let me try a little bit more. He goes, he knocks on a few more doors. No one answered. He knocks on the 4th door after he was about to give up, and a little boy opens up the door, and he's about to say something, and the boy doesn't say a word, takes an envelope, shoves it in his chest, and then closes the door. And he holds it. He's taken aback. He holds that envelope. He opens it up, and he sees a wad of hundreds in there, and he's like, ka-ching! He starts counting. It's $2,500 bills in there, and he's like, he's like, and then he's like, no, something doesn't feel right. He was a righteous person, sits and learns to all day. Knocks on the door again. The boy answers, and he says, is your father or mother home? And he says, yeah. And he says, can I speak to them? And he says, my father's on the phone now. He says, can you do me a favor? Can you ask if your father, is this envelope for me? So the boy says, okay. He runs back. He comes back and he says, yeah, it's for you. And he's okay, and the boy just closed the door. And the guy's thinking, he's like, something doesn't sound right. Knocks again on the door. The boy opens up, and he says, can you please ask your father one more time, is this envelope for me? So the boy starts laughing. He runs back to his father. He comes back a few seconds later. He says, yeah, my father says it's for you, and it's he says the right amount is in there. And he says, okay. And the boy closes the door again. And he's like, knocks on the door one more time. And the boy opens up there, and he's like, yes. And he says, can you do me a favor? He says, can you just make sure? Is this really for me? This little kid is like 7 years old. He runs back to his father, and he comes back, yes, my father said it's for you. It's for you. And he closes the door. He says, listen, God, I tried. And he starts walking down the stairs. He gets halfway down the stairs, and he's thinking, it's a modest apartment. He got $2,500 from this, thing. Something doesn't right. Something doesn't feel right over here. He goes back up, and he knocks on the door again. This time the father opens up. A skinny, little, guy, yeshiva guy with white shirt, black pants, opens up the door and he says, yes, can I help you? He says, listen, I was here a minute ago, and your son gave me this envelope. And he shows the envelope. The second that the father sees the envelope, his face went from regular color to like pale white to purple to red to every color of the rainbow. And he says, I wasn't sure if this is for me. And the guy says, oh my gosh, you don't understand. He says, I borrowed $2,500 from somebody. He called me up a while ago and he said he's coming to pick it up. I thought it was him. I sent my son to give him the money that I owed him back. He says, you don't know. Oh my gosh. And the guy says, listen, I figured something was wrong. And he gives him the money back. And he says, listen, I'm collecting for my daughter's wedding, so on and so forth. And the guy says, yeah. He pulls out of his pocket a $5 bill and he hands it to him. And he says, thank you very much. And he closes the door. The guy is, he's like, he says, I just saved this guy $2,500 and he gives me a $5 bill. And he's like, God, this is a test. He's like, this is a test. He's taking himself to a safe zone, his place, quiet place. And he's like, you know what, God? It's a safe, it's a test. Fine, not a problem. He goes and he says, Okay, it is what it is. He's walking down the stairs. He gets a phone call. It's his appointment at 9 o'clock at night with one of his wealthy, people that he was going to, hoping to get a big check from. He picks up the phone. The guy says, listen, it was a secretary. The secretary says, listen, the person's, held up. He's delayed. You're going to have to come a little bit later. He says, what else is new? Of course. Not a problem. Please, by all means, whenever he's able to see me. He hangs up the phone. He says, what am I going to do now? I have to hang out a little bit longer. Let me try another building. He goes to another building, knocks on the first few doors, gets a few meager change. Finally knocks on the door that says over there, 4F. Knocks on over there. An old man opens up the door with gray beard. And he looks at him, and the old man suddenly has a huge smile on his face, grabs him, brings him inside, and starts singing like it's Purim. He starts singing and dancing with this collector. And I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but imagine this situation. You're sober, and then you have a drunk friend that comes along. And the drunk friend is so happy, and they're like, woo! And all of a sudden, you're completely sober, and you're like, woo! Woo! You feel happy also. It's contagious. And all of a sudden, he's dancing. He had such a stressful day, and this guy is singing and dancing, and he's singing and dancing with him. And eventually he's like, and after a few minutes of them dancing in a circle, imagine you see that scenario. This scenario would be weird unless it's two Jews doing it. Once it's two Jews, especially if the two Jews have long pants and they have a white yarmulke with black letter. But even any Jew, you sitting and see them dancing in the street, you're like, okay, whatever, it's cool. It's not out of the ordinary, especially if you've been in Israel, especially in Sfas. So finally, the collector goes and says, why are we dancing? So the guy says, God was so great to me today. And he says, cool. He says, you don't understand. He says, I'm a retired, the old man telling him, he says, I'm retired. I invest money in stocks. He says, I invested, quite a large sum of money in a stock, and people thought I was going crazy, that I'm just throwing away money, because there was nothing doing with the stock. Today, the stock went public. He says, I made $50,000 profit today on the stock. And then he says, I made 50. And then he started taking his hand and they started dancing together again. And they started dancing. And meanwhile, after a few minutes dancing, the guy is looking at his watch and he says, listen, I'd love to dance with you, but I got to go. I have an appointment. So, but he never even mentioned to him that he's a collector. They were just dancing the whole time. So he says, what are you, an insurance broker or something? He says, no, I'm collecting for, my, he says his daughter is getting married. His daughter is going, and he says, oh, okay. He takes out an envelope from his pocket and hands it to him. It's a very fat envelope. He opens it up. There's 100s, 50s, 20s, and 5s over there. And he looks at it and he's like, he's starting to shake. He's like, what's this? He says, that's for you. He says, all of it? And he's like, yeah, all of it. He says, $5,000. He says, I made $50,000. I have to give him Masel, 10%. I told God, if I make money on this, the first collector that comes to my door, I'm giving him everything, the entire 10%. He says, you're the first person. It's all yours. The guy starts bawling, crying. He says, listen, it's a good thing. I gave you $5,000. No reason to cry. He says, you don't understand. He says, you don't understand what a test I had 20 minutes ago. He says, I just gave up $2,500. I gave up $2,500. I thought I'll never see it. He says, not even a half hour goes by and I make double that. He said, this is what happens. You do something good, you don't get harmed. You go and you listen to God. You become religious. You become this. You're not going to lose out. You're not going to lose out. The problem is that you're never going to lose out. That's a promise. But sometimes when do you see the promise? You could see it in a half hour. You could see it in 5 years, like the story we saw earlier about the Shalom Ozebron, that he went to Israel, and then you saw that he, or sometimes you see it like a Chalimenu, that you have to wait until the next world. And the next world that you'll see that you don't lose out. But one thing is for sure, you go and you pray for a shidduch, you pray for someone to pass away, you pray for someone not to pass away. You pray, it depends which part of the, if you're in the mafia, you're probably not here, but if you are listening to this class, please stop killing people. Okay, but besides that, if you're going and you're praying that somebody should go and should live and shouldn't pass away, and the person passed away, you're praying for shidduch and you don't get the shidduch, you're praying for it and you say, God, what's the point of it all? It's obviously not working, you don't care about me, you don't care about anything, I'm just done, let me throw away the towel. We learned the lesson from Rachel Imenu, never give up. You don't know what power it has in the prayer that you have, in the sacrifice that you give. It's not going to get lost. You are going to get rewarded. Says God to Rachel. There's going to be reward. Sometimes we'll see it soon, sometimes we won't see it until after 120. You pray for somebody. The hardest thing that you could possibly do is you pray and you pray and you pray. Someone's sick, a dear friend, a dear relative, somebody very dear to you. You pray and they pass away. And they pass away, and then what do you know? There's no end. Well, what could be good? We don't know. I don't know. Nobody could tell you what the reason is. But one thing is for sure, that prayer did not go for waste. That prayer could have helped the children cope. That prayer could have helped the grandchildren, the husband, it could help her in the next world. Whatever it is, it could help. We don't know, but nothing goes to waste. And if you do something good, you will for sure 100% be rewarded for it. When Yaakov met Rachel for the first time, you know what he did? It says over there, Vayisa et kolo vayivech. He saw Rachel, and he cried. Why did he cry? Because he saw, says Rashi, that she's not going to be buried with him. He saw in Ruach HaKodesh, he saw in Nevuah, he saw in prophecy. Why is she not going to be buried with him? Because she's going to go and she's going to be crying for her descendants and for both of their descendants. They're going to be in exile, and Yaakov joined her in her prayers. And he went and he also cried. He says he knew what Rachel is getting into. He knew what he's doing, and he went and he also cried. Now we see something so fascinating. Let me take you another small journey on Yosef. Yosef, we see in Genesis chapter 45 verse 1. Yosef is meeting his brothers. And he's about to reveal himself that he is Yosef and that his long lost brother to the 12 tribes. And he goes, and the pasuk says over there, it says, "V'lo yuchal Yosef leitapek," and he wasn't able to hold himself in anymore. And you know what he told all of his Egyptian guards? Get everybody out. Why did he tell that everybody out? Says Rashi, he did not want his brothers to be embarrassed in front of the Egyptian guards, because his brothers are the one that sold him to the Ishmaelim, to the Arabs, and which sold him to the Egyptians. He says, if they're going to be so embarrassed of what they did, I don't want my brothers to be embarrassed in front of other people. He went and he says, leave. Everybody leave. I'm alone. And he was putting himself at risk over there. His brothers at that point in time were not buddy-buddy with Yosef. They thought there was a ruler who just wanted to cause him problems. They were ready to take revenge. They were ready to kill him. Says Yosef, I don't care. They're not getting embarrassed in front of these Egyptians. And you know what Yosef goes? And Yosef says, Ani Yosef. I am Yosef. Ha'od avichai. He says, my father's still alive. And it says over there, Nivalum bepanav. They got shaken, they got scared. Why they were embarrassed. It's like, oh my gosh. He was right all along. His dreams were correct. Everything was correct with him all along. They were so embarrassed. You know what a regular person would have said at that point in time? Who's laughing now, bro? You said you're not going to be bowed down to me. Well, guess what? You just bowed down to me. Mic drop. This, I am the one who's right. You know what Yosef said? He was like, hey brothers, don't worry. It's not your fault. God sent me here. It says, Al ta'atzavu. Don't be sad. God, he was in jail for over 10 years. And he's saying over there, hey brothers, don't worry. It's not your fault. God sent me over here so I could be, over here. Where did he get this power from? Where did he have this ability to stand up to his brothers, to not embarrass his brothers in public? Where did he do that from? The answer is very simple. From his mother. His mother was Rachel. Her mother sacrificed everything for her sister not to get embarrassed. There's something called spiritual DNA. If you have a test in your life, and a difficult test, and you pass it, guess what? That passes and trickles down to your children. You're going, and people say, okay, listen, I'll listen to English music. I'll dress not modestly when my children are not around, when I'm in a different zip code. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. My children, doesn't work that way. Your children, just like there's genetic DNA, there's spiritual DNA. You provide to your children your spiritual DNA. You work on something. You fix something, guess what? That power is going to your child. And we see this by Yosef. But it goes even more. Yosef never told Yaakov and Binyamin that he was sold. He never told them that. Listen to the proof of this. After Yaakov passed away, we see this in Genesis chapter 50, the brothers were scared. It says, now Yosef is going to punish us. Until now, Yaakov was alive. So he wasn't going to hurt us because his father, we're all part of the brothers. But now that that our father passed away, maybe Yosef is going to take revenge upon us for selling him. So they went and they sent messengers to Yosef. And they said to him, he says, your father commanded us, please forgive your brothers. Now, the Gemara tells us, the Talmudic sages tell us, Yaakov Avinu never did that. Never told him that. Yaakov Avinu never told him that. This is a lie for the sake of peace type of information. The brothers made this up because they were afraid that their brother Yosef was going to hurt them. And they lied for the sake of peace. And we know, by the way, you're allowed to lie for the sake of peace. And again, details on this, ask your local Orthodox rabbi. This is why if any wife ever asks her husband, do I look fat in this dress? Even if you do, he is halachically allowed to say you look 100% skinny, you should belong on the anorexic page of whatever. It says, for shalom, for peace, you're allowed to lie. Problem is, people take this way off the grid. But whatever it is, and in that sense, this says the Rambam, says Nachmanides. He says Yaakov Avinu. From here we learn that Yaakov Avinu also didn't know that Yosef was sold out. Why? Because if Yaakov Avinu knew that Yosef was sold by his brothers, of course Yaakov would have spoke to Yosef and said, listen, have mercy on your brothers. He would have spoken to them. But he never, ever spoke to him about it. Why? Because he never knew. He never knew about it. And that's why it says in Genesis chapter 48, verse 1, it says that the messengers had to tell Yosef, hey, by the way, Yosef, your father is ill. Why did they have to tell him? Yosef didn't visit his father? You understand the connection that Yosef had? Yosef lost his mother at the age of 7 or 8. His brothers were against him. All he had was his father. Finally, after being separated from his father for so many years, he gets to finally meet his father, and he's not going to spend every free second that he has with him. And the answer is no. You know why he didn't want to spend every? Because he was afraid. If he was going to spend, his father's going to start inquiring, how did you actually really get here? Who sold you? How did you get here? He says, at one point you were free. How did you get over here? He didn't want to give up his brothers. For that reason, he did it. That's why he had to be told that his father was sick. That is the extent that he went to. And even his brother Binyamin, also, the Be'am Loetz in Parashat Miketz goes and brings down that when Binyamin first met Yosef, their brothers, from the same mother and the same father, when they first met Yosef, Yosef had a special book. This book, it's a mystical book, that if you open this book and you know how to use this book, you could find out any location, like a GPS location, book. You could find out any location of anybody in the world. And Yosef goes and says, listen, I have this book. He says, you said you're looking for your lost brother. Binyamin did not know that he's talking to Yosef. And he says, you said you're looking for your lost brother. Here is the book. Go search. Where is Yosef? Where is he? So Binyamin opens the book, he goes and he says, listen, my father taught me how to use this book, Binyamin says. He opens the book and he does it, he closes it. Opens it up, does it again. Yosef says, what's going on? He says, is it working? He says, no, something's not working. He says, why? What do you see? So Binyamin tells the viceroy, which is Yosef, he says, I'm doing it right, but every time I do it, it tells me that my brother is standing right here next to me. And it's only me and you, so it can't be that. So I did it again, and the same result came. And I did it again, and the same result came. Says Yosef, I am your brother. And it says, what happened? He says, Yishmaelim sold me to here. He never mentioned that his other brother sold him. He never once mentioned to anybody else that his brother sold him. Where did he get that power? You know what a crazy power that is? Being separated from your family for so many years, being put in prison, being put in a foreign land. The first thing that you should say would be like, aha, I got you. I'm right, you're wrong. That's the first thing that any normal person, any regular person would do. But look at Yosef. With the power that he had. Why? Because Rachel. Rachel gave him that power. The power of spiritual DNA. And this answers such an important lesson that we need to learn. We go and we start thinking, and we start saying, God, look, I do so much for you. I do so much. We all do so much for God, as if God owes us. Right? Look at me, I'm doing so much for you. Where is my blessing? Where's my shidduch? Where's my husband? Where's my wife? Where's my children? Where is my parnasah? Where is the health? Where is everything? We go and we complain, and we go and we sit and we complain, and we say, look at what we do, look at what we sacrifice. And God says, don't worry. There is going to be reward to every single thing that you do. You might not see it now. You might not see it in 5 years. You might not see it in 10 years. But I guarantee you at the end, you will see it and you will realize the power, the blessing of everything that you had. There is not a single prayer that does not go unheard. Every single prayer. You could think that you're praying for something time and time again and it doesn't get answered. Guess what? It's going to get answered. But we don't know how it's going to get answered. Everything has a power. We see that with Rachel. The craziest idea that after everything that she gave up, she didn't see her answer only until after she passed away. And then, what an answer she got. What an answer. She has the strongest power. She was able to save everybody. Everybody in her merit. Nobody else was able to come close to Rachel because of what she did. Now, if you guys give me a few more minutes, there's some lessons that we could learn for Lavan, and we'll finish with this. Lavan, he was a trickster. And not only that, he was such a slimy sleazebag of a trickster, that he went and he even deceived his own people. Now, what happened was when Yaakov went into this, to this place, there was a big boulder on the well. And why was there something covering the well? Because there was a shortage of water. So they didn't want one shepherd to come in and take all the water for everybody. So what they did is that they made sure they put something really, really heavy, that all the shepherds had to come together, lift the boulder, and then they would all be able to share the water equally. But all of a sudden, Yaakov comes, and the water was flowing freely. There was a blessing. When you have a righteous person, there's a blessing in the land. And Yaakov, being the righteous person, came, and there was a blessing in the land. Yet Lavan goes to he gathers a town hall meeting. He gathers everybody. He says, listen, guys. He says, we all know when Yaakov came, our water situation, the problem went away. He says, we all want him to stay. I have a plan, but I have to make sure you're all in on it. He says, listen, I'm going to make it, he's going to want to marry my daughter, but what I'll do is, I'll make him work 7 years, and then we'll make a wedding. He says, but I need your involvement on it. And each one says, you each have to give me a deposit. So he went and he collected deposits from each and every single one of them. And what did he do with that deposit? That's the deposit that he went and he made his wedding from. He didn't even spend a dime out of it. This, fraudster. Everybody else was it's like, listen, you want him to get married, no? That's why it says in the pasuk, "V'yasaf Lavan et kol anshe hamakom v'yas mishnah." He gathered all the people of the land and he made a party. What do you mean he gathered all the people? It means just that everybody paid for their own. Everybody went and they paid. This one donated the meat, this one donated the wine, this one donated the salad, this one everybody donated something. He didn't have to put a dime out of his pocket. Now what happened is, this is something that people don't know. It's an interesting midrash, is when the wedding night came, they all sang a song. The song was Hilah, 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 Hilah. That's what they used to say. They sang, and Yaakov heard this, and it was like, okay, that's an interesting song. But what were they singing? Hilah. If you separate it, it says Hilah. But they slurred the words together, singing like la la la, Hilah, la la la, Hilah, la. What were they saying? They were saying Hilah, meaning this is Leah that you're marrying. They were putting like a sort of like a safe place for them. That if Yaakov Avinu comes in and says, hey, you guys cheated me, I was with Melachah, I'd be like, we told you. What do you think the song that we were singing the whole time? We were singing the whole time. Leah, it's Leah, it's Leah, it's Leah. We were singing it the whole time. It's not our fault that you didn't listen to our songs, but they slurred the words. This is something that people tend to justify their actions. When you know that you're doing something wrong, but somehow you say like, okay, well, technically, I'm just borrowing this money from this person's purse. So, but we justify they were justifying their actions. A lesson that you learn: when something is wrong, it's wrong. If you're gonna do it anyway, whatever it is, may God have mercy on your soul. But if you're gonna do it anyways, at least realize and understand you're doing something wrong. Don't be justifying just like the people in the town of Lavan. They went and justified it. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, I'm going to give you 3 lessons. Lesson number 2, in Genesis chapter 29, verse 26 and 27, there it goes and says that Yaakov Avinu goes and says, hey, listen, what are you doing? He says, you promised me Rachel, and now you give me Leah. And what did Lavan says? It's not the way of our land. This is the way that we do it. And you know what Lavan said? Lavan says, okay, listen, you work for me another 7 years, v'nitna lach, and we will give you. Meaning what? We're a collective community. I'm sorry, this is all that we do together. We'll give you the other daughter if you follow the procedure. Lavan said we, as if it's not his problem, it's the community. It's not me. This is what we do. How many times do we hear, in life that we tell ourselves, everybody does this. Everybody speaks like this. Everybody works like this. Everybody talks like this. Everybody dresses like this. Well, we think that, okay, we're all in it together, so then it's okay. So then it's fine. We could all, whatever. It's fine. It's not such a big problem because everybody does it. You ever hear that? I hear that all the time. Well, everybody does it. And then you hear the same answer. Well, if they jump off of the bridge with you, be like, maybe, yeah. I don't know. It sounds like fun. How high is the bridge? Do I have a string attached to my, maybe it's a rubber band. So the idea is that, number 1, don't justify your actions. Number 2, just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean that it's right. The last lesson that we learned from Lavan, and by the way, this is an entire shiur in itself. This is just like an extra credit to what you came today. This is just like a bonus. This is like the class ready for this is like a bonus material. Bonus extra unedited footage. I don't know what back in, you could buy like a movie, and then you could buy the unedited director's cut, where you could see the people behind the scenes talk about it. Well, yes, this movie cost us $14 billion, and we originally wanted to shoot it in Africa, but then we didn't have enough money to buy Africa, so we made in Africa with the money that we have. And people are like, yeah, tell me more. I want to know about Titanic. Wow, really? You made your own pool? It wasn't really an ocean? They made their own pool. That is crazy. And we sit over here, and you sit over there, and it's one thing that you waste your time watching a movie. But to listen to the people talk about it, about afterwards, the team was such a great team. Worked together like harmony. I don't know if they still do this. Back in the day, they still do it. It's like, I'm like, you pay, you could buy it, but if you pay extra money, you hear some boring people speak about the boring lives and what they did to create this exciting thing. Be like, yes. You ever go to a doctor and be like, tell me about medical school? Yeah, what was it like, Really? That's so nice. And okay, one person does that. Okay. You're like, so you didn't sleep for 14 years? Was it beneficial? Oh, that's why you don't have hair. Oh, okay. Okay. So, this is the bonus footage. But the difference is that this is more juicier than anything else. Okay. See the problem with my mind? You guys see what I'm talking about? This is what goes into my mind.
That's unedited footage.
That's true. That's unedited. Right. That's unedited. The truth is, this is edited. There's a lot more that I could speak about. So, going back to the holiness of the Torah, but it's still. No, I'm sorry. Okay, it's already in my mind. This is to amaze me of what people do. I've heard that there is magazines, there's publications that are built on the fictional world of Hollywood. Yeah. There's things that people are so in depth involved in this that they're like, okay, well, what happened to Superman? Like, I want to know, where does he come from? Where does he go? Is it really Cotton Eye Joe? You ask all these, you have all these, questions, and people are so involved in it. They're so connected to this. But then you're like, you hear a story about the Torah. The Torah is even more interesting than movies. If you really look at the reason, but does anybody ever ask, and so what was Rachel and Leah's life before Yaakov Avinu came? Like, what's the prequel? What was it? It's prequel, right? Like, what's a prequel to this? What is going on over here? Like, people live.
I have psychology on Harry Potter and all the people, and I'm wondering, but they're fiction. How do you have psychology on that?
I didn't even want to get started on Harry Potter. I believe people have a Harry Potter addiction and should be admitted to psychiatric, evaluation. People are so involved in Harry Potter that.
They were saying how they didn't have friends, but they're not real. How do you?
Do you know that if you go to, I went to Disneyland World, whatever, nature, Disney place, whatever that's called. You pay about $1,000 to get in, and there is a section for Harry Potter. I don't know what it's called. Well, it'll be easier. Harry Potter World. You go over there. You could buy a magic wand. You could buy a magic wand. And the store is full. Be like, those Gryffindor, Slytherin, whatever. I don't know what that. You're gonna go buy here. You could buy the hat. You could buy all these things. And people over there, they're spending $40 on a piece of wood. I am like, oh my God, I want to set up shop, a store right next door to them. I'm going to sell potions, right? It's going to be water, but it's going to be green, and it's going to cost you $45, and it's going to taste exactly like Mountain Dew because it is Mountain Dew. And I would sell it, and guess what? People are going to buy it. This is magic potion, and this is going to make you, become invisible. And we're going to have, and people are going, how people are invested into these things? Every time I think of Harry Potter, I think about one person. One person, I don't even remember who this person was. I don't remember who it was, but he used to tell me that he used to read Harry Potter in the bathroom. And the first question that I asked was, why? But that wasn't even the more difficult question. I think I said this before. And he read all 17 books, whatever it was over there, the whole series. And I said, why? He read everything.
To refresh his memory.
He was reviewing it. He was. I'm like, good night. There's nothing to me. I'm like, you're reviewing Harry Potter? Who is testing you on this? When,
I have friends who play trivia on Harry Potter, and it's amazing. They know the next sentence.
Next week, let's pray for them. Let's say Shir Malot for that. I don't mean to make fun. I do, but I don't. I don't mean to insult people because I know there's die-hard Harry Potter fans. I know they're die-hard and they're what is it called when you're a normal person in Harry Potter?
A muggle.
You're like, you know that people are so involved in this. We're going to have to title this thing Harry Potter now. You know, there's people that are so involved. It's going to be Rachel Imenu and Harry Potter. You know? There are so many people that are so involved in this that they go and they look at other people who don't know Harry Potter. You're just a muggle.
I actually read.
So, did you just curse me? Like, I don't know what just happened. Like, you know, like, and they might even take out their magic wand from their, you know, from their sheath, you know, and their cloak falls down over there, and then they have a pigeon or an owl or whatever they carry over there, and be like, you know, and then they start saying, you know, words English and backwards, you know, that was Russian, but whatever, you know, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's people are involved in this fake world. They're so involved in this fake world. Now, granted, she was brilliant for being able to create this, to create this thing. That's a brilliant thing. I'm sure she's an amazing writer. If only she'd be able to write an interpretation on the Torah, right? People would just buy it, you know, maybe because, but like, she's brilliant for the way that she did it. But look at how much people are enveloped in this. It's their life. It's their thing. There's like Harry Potter memorabilia, you know, you go and you buy something over there, I'm like, you know, it's ridiculous of what people are so involved in the fake world. Shake this person, wake up, you know, you're not going to run into a wall and it's going to be into, that I would like to see.
I read this article on Harry Potter actually, where this boy was addicted to Harry Potter. He wanted to go off the Zerach. His father took him out of school for a couple of weeks, and they were talking about Harry Potter, and they got into the Jewish subject, and the boy was saying, I'm not going to go into the whole article, but he was saying, so we are like the wizards, the Goyim are like the muggles.
Oh, it's brilliant.
And then he's like, but wait, I want to become like a muggle, like I am a wizard, and I want to convert to a muggle. And he went back to yeshiva, and he...
That's amazing. I'm going to repeat that because they didn't hear that. That's amazing. I have to... So let me repeat that, what she said. Let me repeat that. Oh, that's amazing. Happens to be, I remember in 9th grade, I read part of it. That's why I know, I don't remember Baruch Hashem everything, but I remember part of it. I don't know whatever happened, if he died or he ended up, you know, beating...
I read it all.
Okay. So like, it's if I think about it a little bit, there's it will come back to me. There is a bad character over there that they don't even mention his name.
He who can't be named.
It's like God. It's like, you know, we now say God's name. They put it on a level of like, you know, but let me, the thing that you said was fascinating. Listen to this, because you know, by the way, I had people in the virtual world, they told me this before, they're like, people ask questions, but they can't hear it. So I want to repeat that because I think it was a bomb you just put on us. There was a guy, I'm going to embellish it a little bit if I think. Okay, there was a kid on drugs. No, okay. There was a guy who was going off the derech, and and he was a diehard, you know, Harry Potter fan. And, you know, someone goes and speaks to him and says, listen, he says, you know, in the Harry Potter world, you have the wizards and you have the regular people. He says, in the Jewish world, you have the Jewish people and the non-Jews. Jewish people has in such a high level. And the person, what was it, his father? Speaking of his father goes, brilliant man. His father goes and says, listen, he says, you're a wizard. You're a wizard. You'll be able to go and accomplish so much. And you're going to go and you want to become a regular person? You want to become a regular person? And you're a Jew. You want to become a regular person? The guy says, no, I want to stay a wizard. I want to curse people. No. He goes and he has the power to do that. If you realize, the truth is, you can learn out of anything. Most people, though, however, don't learn from Harry Potter. I don't think there's much that you could come out of Harry Potter and be like, you know what, I'm going to be a better person. Yeah. Because, you know, like, we're able to fly on broomsticks together, and we're able to catch a ball, you know, like, there's nothing good. It's 100% a waste of time. Let's just be realistic over here. But there's always things that you're able to learn from anything in life, you're able to learn something. But Harry, unfortunately, you know, it was a happy ending, the truth is. I can't say it wasn't a happy ending. But in the next world, there's nothing that really Harry comes into. And if all the good that he does, the truth is, I don't even know what's going on. I'm about to say some things that I don't know. So I know I could say things about Torah. Some people know, some people don't know, whatever. I could say things about science. Some people know, some people... If I start speaking about Harry Potter, the mumchim, the experts, the Hasidim of Harry Potter, they go, on page 56, part B, section A, it says that Harry did not do this. And you said that he did? Because, how dare you? So I can't say something of what happened to Harry Potter, what not. But one thing that you can learn and you can take out, from it, that by being different is not always bad. By being different, you can gain, you can learn, you can grow. There are many people that and this is to each and every single one of us. We all think we have the biggest problems in our life. And everybody else, they don't know what I'm going through. Everybody thinks that we have the biggest issues in our life. And you know what? Everybody does have big issues. And we go through issues and we tell God, why? Why are you doing this to me? Like, after all that I've been through, why do you have to do this to me? And I'm trying to do good, and I'm trying to do this, and it's still bad things happen. Says God, don't worry. There is reward for everything that happens. You're going through a hardship in life, and we all go through hardships in life, and maybe we don't have to ever go through any hardships in life. Very good, to 3 people. We never have to deal with this. But if we do, we have to realize that there is a purpose. And not only should you step back from your religious observance, go and increase it. Say, God, no. I know that this is a test. I know that there's going to be a reward somewhere. Somewhere this is going to come out. Learn our lesson from Rachel. Don't learn like Lavan. Don't be that sneaky person, that sweet talker. The last thing I want to finish off. Lavan, when God comes to Lavan, and he tells Lavan, when he was chasing Yaakov, and he says, Hishamel lecha penti daber im Yaakov mitov ha'adra. When you reach Yaakov, he was chasing Yaakov, and God told him, if you reach Yaakov, don't speak to him good or bad. Why not speak to him good? What's wrong with Lavan speaking to him good? And the answer is, if you get a treacherous, sleazy guy like Lavan that speaks good to him, maybe he's going to convince Yaakov to go back to him. He says there's more danger to the enemy being kind to you than the enemy being harsh to you. He says, then that's why we see in our day and age, when we look after the Enlightenment period, that everybody went and enjoyed. Well, Jamal is so nice to me. I love him. Christina is amazing. God, you don't, he goes like, the Rabbi, you don't know what a great woman she is. I've never met a Jewish woman like, how many Jewish women do you know? You're dating Christina, there's a problem over here, right? How many Jewish people? You're like, no, you don't know. She's a saint. Could be she is. Call her Saint Christina, but she's not your saint. People go and they fall in what? The gracious of the other side. But they're so nice. They're so good. That's great. They could be amazing people. But they're not for you. They're not your soulmate. You, as a Jew, have a Jewish soulmate. They have a non-Jewish soulmate. They might convert and they might be your soulmate at one point in time. But right now, they're not. And this is not. The enemy is more dangerous when it's nicer than when it's meaner. Says God to Lavan, don't speak to Yaakov Avinu, not good and not bad. The power that we have the lessons that you have from Rachel, from Yosef, from Lavan is mind-blowing. The lesson that I cannot emphasize. And you know what? I read this story of Rachel so many times. The Midrashim, so many times. For some reason, and I thank you God, probably in your schut, this time that I read it this year, I was like, I got to speak. By the way, if you realize, we should have continued in our other series. I did this because I was learning this, and I'm like, this is crazy. I have to share this right now. I can't. The lesson here is so amazing, so powerful. It is in my opinion, it's one of the strongest questions that people have against God. I'm becoming religious. Now you're giving me problems? I'm doing all this good. Now you're giving me the problems? We don't know. Learn from the story of Rachel. You're going to get reward for it. There's nothing that you do that's good that's not going to go unheard, and it's going to get answered. Every single prayer gets answered. Maybe Zat Hashem, we take this, and maybe we have the power of Rachel Imenu to not only go and answer our tefillot, that we shouldn't have any problems, but rather bring us back to Eretz Yisrael, to return us to our holy land, that we're able to build the Bet HaMikdash Meher B'Meinu, we're able to actually greet Rachel Imenu in the time of Tchiyat Ametim. Any questions? Let's start this way. Okay.
I feel like in a way, Rachel went through so much, and you were just saying that we all also go through so much, but we might get rewarded. We'll get rewarded, but it could be in the next world. So that basically just means we just have to suffer. Just be okay with suffering.
So that's a good question. So that means that if we do something good and we're having a hard time, that means that we have to suffer. In every situation. By the way, that question is so loaded. It's such a loaded question that I had a conversation before I came to this class today with somebody for about 45 minutes. And it was about that topic. And I could give you that entire thing for 45. I'm not going to, but I'm going to get for this entire thing in there. But yes, people have to go, and people go through difficulties in life. It doesn't mean that you have to suffer. There's always angles of looking at it. If you realize that God is doing this for a purpose, and Rachel knew that, Rachel, realized this situation. If you realize that God's doing it for a purpose, and nothing that you do is not going to get unheard of, you're going to be able to live your life, even the suffering part, with a tremendous amount of ease and menuchat nefesh, that you're able to deal with it. Because if you realize that everything gets answered and everything gets heard, you are going to be able to deal with life's biggest problems very, very easily. Life, I know, we want life to be as easy as, and may life be extremely easy for every single one of us.
The shot is good for you, the shot is still going to hurt.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right.
You're right.
You just have to accept the pain.
You're right.
So that's what it is, you just have to accept everything that sucks.
There's no secret easy answer.
To prevent you suffering.
Yeah. People have problems. We don't want the problems. When problem comes, we have to realize we have to deal with it. And it's not easy. It's difficult. It's very difficult sometimes. And trust me, I know, I hear. I definitely understand. People go through tremendous amount of difficulties.
Are we supposed to accept it? Just like, okay, fine.
God doesn't give you a test that you can pass. I mean, I can tell you from today to tomorrow, really, it's for the best. At the end of the day, you're going through a hard time. I acknowledge that. I know that. God knows that. We pray and hope. Yeah. At the end of the day, this is what we need to do. Someone who's going through chemo, someone who's going through lost a loved one. Life-changing events are very difficult. Life is not always balloons and butterflies. Yeah. Makes you grow. Next question?
Did Yosef actually ever forgive his brothers?
Yes.
He said it out loud.
Yosef forgave his brothers. How do we know that? Because when Yosef told him, he says, it's not your, he mentioned them, he says, it's not your fault that you came over here. God wanted me to come over here. And look at all the good that I was able to do because I came over here. So he mentioned over there, and by that, the Chachamim learned that Yosef forgave his brothers full-heartedly. Yeah.
When you said tefillah, I heard something from Rabbi Fisher Schachter. He said that sometimes, he was in the office and he wanted to copy something, wanted to print something, and he was pressing Control P, and he kept on doing it. You heard this?
No, but I can imagine there's 7,000 copies that come out.
And then somebody comes running down, he's like, oh my gosh, you gotta stop, there's just so many copies, the whole place. So he said the same thing with tefillah, we're davening, we don't see it. But
It's going somewhere else.
It's going and going.
That's amazing. I love that. That's amazing. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, Chazak Baruch.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.